Chosen ones, stop everything and listen now, because this is not a casual message and this is not something you scroll past and come back to later. This is a moment that interrupts your routine on purpose. There are times when heaven whispers, and there are times when heaven shakes the room, and this is one of those moments where the noise in your life has to go quiet so you can hear what has already been decided about you. You didn't click this by accident, and you didn't arrive here because you were bored. Something inside you has been restless, alert, almost uneasy, like you've been sensing that the atmosphere has shifted, but you couldn't put words to it. That restlessness is not anxiety, it's alignment. It's the signal that a spiritual lockdown has been issued, not to punish you, but to protect what's about to be released through you. There are seasons when heaven restricts movement, closes doors, and tightens access, not because you're being held back, but because you're being set apart. An emergency lockdown is not chaos, it's control. It means nothing random is allowed in and nothing essential is allowed out. And if you felt isolated lately, misunderstood, slowed down, or strangely disconnected from things that once felt normal, that wasn't life falling apart, that was life being rearranged around your assignment, you were pulled back so you wouldn't be contaminated by distractions that look harmless but would delay what's coming next. Some of you have been wondering why conversations stopped, why opportunities paused, why certain people drifted without explanation. You replayed moments, questioned yourself, tried to fix what didn't respond. But hear this clearly. Heaven didn't cut those connections because you failed. Heaven cut them because they had reached their expiration date. You were about to carry something too valuable to be exposed to casual hands. Lockdown is what happens right before transfer. Lockdown is what happens when the environment has to be secured before a major move. You are not behind schedule. You are not missing out. You are not forgotten. You are in containment, and containment always precedes deployment. Think about it. The most sensitive operations are never announced publicly. They are handled quietly, carefully, with limited access. That's why your life has felt quieter. That's why fewer people understand you. That's why you've been seeing more than you've been saying. Heaven has reduced the noise so your discernment can sharpen. There has been a war over your focus, not your talent, not your potential, your focus. Because if you ever fully lock in, if you ever stop doubting what you carry, if you ever move without needing permission or validation, the impact would be immediate. So distractions were sent. Delays were introduced. Emotional weight was applied. But here's what the opposition didn't calculate. Pressure didn't crush you. It clarified you. You didn't quit. You adjusted. You didn't collapse. You listened. And now you're standing at a threshold where heaven says, pause, stay still, don't rush, don't react, because what's unfolding requires precision. This lockdown is not about fear. It's about timing. You're being protected from premature exposure. Some doors look open, but they're traps. Some offers look good, but they're distractions. Some people smile, but don't have the capacity to handle your next version. So heaven stepped in and said, not yet, not here, not like this. And it feels uncomfortable because your spirit is ready, but the environment is still being prepared. That tension you feel is not confusion, it's anticipation. You've outgrown survival mode, but you haven't fully stepped into authority mode yet. And that in-between space can feel lonely. You're not who you used to be, but you're not fully revealed either. That's the lockdown phase. That's where identity stabilizes. That's where motives are purified. That's where strength becomes quiet instead of loud. You're learning how to move without explaining yourself. You're learning how to trust without seeing everything. You're learning how to stand even when no one applauds. Pay attention to what's being highlighted right now. Old habits you can't tolerate anymore. Conversations that drain you instantly. Environments that feel heavy for no obvious reason. Your discernment is increasing. And with increased discernment comes increased responsibility. You can't go back to what you've outgrown, even if it feels familiar. Familiar is not always safe. Comfort is not always calling. Heaven is training you to choose alignment over attachment. Some of you have been asking for a sign, and this is it. The pause is the sign. The slowdown is the sign. The silence is the sign. When heaven goes quiet, it's not absent, it's intentional. Instructions are being finalized. Paths are being synchronized. People you haven't met yet are being positioned. Opportunities you couldn't force are being aligned, and you don't need to chase any of it. What's assigned to you already knows your name. This is why you must guard your energy right now. Not everyone deserves access to you in a lockdown season. Not every opinion needs your attention. Not every emotion needs a reaction. You're being trained to respond from authority, not impulse. The old version of you explained, defended, overgave, overextended. That version did its job. This version observes, discerns, and moves with intention. If you felt an unusual pull toward reflection, toward prayer, toward solitude, toward sharpening your mind and spirit, that's not withdrawal, that's preparation. Warriors don't entertain crowds before strategy is set. Builders don't invite guests before the foundation is secure, and leaders are often formed in private long before they're trusted in public. The lockdown will not last forever, but it must be respected while it's active. If you rush it, you risk leaking what's meant to be released whole. If you ignore it, you miss the instructions embedded in the stillness. This is a season where obedience matters more than urgency, where alignment matters more than applause, where depth matters more than speed. You may not see the full picture yet, but you don't need to. You just need to stay present, stay grounded, stay clean in your intentions. The next phase will require clarity, and clarity is built now, not later. Every delay has been buying you precision. Every closed door has been narrowing your focus. Every quiet day has been strengthening your inner voice. And as this lockdown continues, you'll notice something subtle shifting inside you, a calm replacing the rush, confidence replacing the questioning, a steady knowing that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You'll start recognizing that what's coming doesn't need hype, it needs readiness, and readiness looks like discipline, patience, and trust. So don't panic when things feel still. Don't force movement just to feel productive. Don't reopen doors that heaven has already sealed. Stay alert, stay humble, stay listening, because when the lockdown lifts, it won't come with noise, it will come with direction. And you'll know exactly when to move, exactly where to step, and exactly who to leave behind as you walk into the next phase of what has been quietly prepared for you while the world thought nothing was happening and you were simply waiting, when in truth, every Hing was being arranged behind the scenes, and even now there are shifts occurring you cannot see yet, but you can feel them in the way your spirit stays awake at night, sensing that something is aligning and something is closing and something is about to open in a way that will require to move differently than before and speak differently than before and trust at a level you have never been asked to trust before. As this moment continues to unfold and you remain still enough to receive what is about to be revealed next. Because what is unfolding now is not a repeat of anything you've lived through before. And that's why your old coping mechanisms don't work the way they used to. You can't distract yourself out of this season. You can't outwork it. You can't explain your way through it. This phase requires presence, awareness, and a deeper level of trust than you've ever been asked to give. And that's uncomfortable for the part of you that learned how to survive by staying busy, by staying useful, by staying available. Heaven is teaching you how to be effective without being exhausted, how to be powerful without being loud, how to be certain without needing reassurance. There is a stripping happening, but it's not cruel, it's precise. Excess expectations are falling off. Old identities that were built around struggle are dissolving. You're realizing that some of the strength you were proud of was actually armor you no longer need. You don't have to brace for impact all the time anymore. You don't have to assume loss before it happens. You don't have to stay guarded in rooms where you were never meant to fight. The lockdown is teaching your nervous system to rest while your spirit stays alert. You've been replaying memories lately, not because you're stuck in the past, but because your mind is closing loops. Lessons are being integrated. Patterns are being recognized. You're finally seeing how certain cycles kept repeating, not to punish you, but to teach you discernment. And now that discernment has matured, those cycles can end. That's why you feel done with things you used to tolerate. That's why excuses sound hollow now. That's why your patience for misalignment has run out. This is not bitterness, this is clarity. There's also a recalibration of desire happening. What you once wanted badly doesn't hold the same pull. Goals that once drove you now feel incomplete or shallow. You're not losing ambition, you're gaining alignment. Your spirit is rejecting goals that don't match your assignment. And that can feel confusing because you worked hard for those dreams. You invested time, emotion, energy. But not every dream was meant to be permanent. Some dreams were stepping stones, not destinations. The emergency lockdown exists to protect you from settling for almost purpose, almost peace, almost fulfillment. Heaven knows that if you move too fast right now, you might choose comfort over calling, familiarity over future. So movement, it's been restricted not because you're weak, but because you're valuable. High-value assets are never left unguarded. You may notice that people project onto you more in this season. Their assumptions, their expectations, their unresolved issues. Let them. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to explain your silence. Silence is doing work words never could. It's revealing who respects boundaries and who resents them. It's showing you who is aligned with your growth and who is only comfortable with your availability. Some relationships will try to pull you back into old dynamics, old roles, old emotional labor. Resist the urge. You're not abandoning anyone, you're obeying the season. Not everyone who walked with you can walk into what's next with you. That doesn't make them bad. It just makes the assignment specific, Pay attention to your intuition right now. It's sharper than ever, even if you've doubted it before. That quiet inner nudge that says, don't reply yet, don't go there, don't agree to that, wait one more day, say no without explaining. That's guidance, that's protection. The more you honor it, the clearer it becomes. The more you ignore it, the louder the resistance inside you feels. There's a reason you've been feeling pulled toward simplicity, toward fewer commitments, toward deeper conversations instead of many shallow ones. Your spirit is conserving energy for something that will require your full presence. This is not the season to, scatter yourself. This is the season to gather yourself, to consolidate, to become whole. You've been strong for a long time, strong enough to carry others, strong enough to endure disappointment quietly, strong enough to keep going when no one noticed. But now strength is being redefined. Strength now looks like boundaries. Strength looks like rest without guilt. Strength looks like trusting timing instead of forcing outcomes. The lockdown is also exposing false urgency, that feeling that you must act now or you'll miss everything. That's not intuition, that's fear, and fear is not your guide anymore. What's meant for you is not fragile. It doesn't disappear because you took time to align. It doesn't vanish because you said no to the wrong thing. If anything, it becomes clearer, cleaner, more accessible when you stop chasing it. There are conversations happening about you that you're not invited to, and that's intentional. There are doors opening that you didn't knock on. There are shifts being approved that don't require your effort, only your readiness. And readiness is being built in the unseen moments, in the days that feel ordinary, in the nights where you sit with your thoughts and feel something changing, even if you can't name it yet. You may feel a sense of seriousness settling in, not heaviness, but weight, purpose weight, responsibility weight, the kind of weight that comes when you realize your choices matter more now. Your words carry more impact. Your alignment affects more than just you. That awareness is part of the preparation. You're being trusted with influence, even if it hasn't fully manifested yet. Do not mistake quiet for stagnation. Seeds grow in silence. Foundations are laid underground. The most important work is often invisible until it's complete, and you are in the middle of that invisible work. Your character is being reinforced. Your discernment is being refined. Your courage is being stabilized. There will come a moment when the lockdown lifts, and when it does, movement will feel effortless. Doors will open without resistance. Conversations will align without forcing. You'll recognize opportunities, not by how exciting they feel, but by how peaceful they are. There will be no scrambling, no convincing, no chasing, just clarity and direction. Until then, your role is not to figure everything out. Your role is to stay present, stay honest with yourself, and stay obedient to what you know, even when it doesn't make sense yet, especially when it doesn't make sense yet. That's where trust is built. You're not late. You're not early. You're exactly where timing has placed you. And even now, as this season continues to stretch, to refine, to quiet certain impulses and amplify others, there is a deepening happening within you that cannot be rushed, a steadiness forming that cannot be shaken, a knowing settling in that does not need external confirmation. And as you remain in this space, attentive but unforced, alert but at peace, the next layer will begin to reveal itself in subtle ways, through intuition, through alignment, through doors that feel inevitable rather than exciting, through steps that feel natural rather than dramatic, and you will continue moving forward without needing to announce it, without needing to explain it, without needing permission, carrying forward the awareness that this pause was never empty, this silence was never wasted, and this lockdown was never meant to stop you, but to shape you further as the unfolding continues. And shaping takes time, even when the outside world is impatient with process. You felt that impatience pressing on you, sometimes from others, sometimes from your own thoughts. That subtle voice asking why it's taking so long, why clarity hasn't fully landed yet, why the breakthrough feels close but not quite in your hands. But understand this, what's being built in you cannot be rushed without being weakened. Speed can impress people, but only depth can sustain purpose. And heaven is far more interested in what will last than what will look good for a moment. You are learning how to sit with unanswered questions without letting them steal your peace. That alone is evidence of growth. There was a time when uncertainty would trigger panic, overthinking, spirals of self-doubt. Now, even when you don't have all the answers, there's a steadiness in you that says, I don't know yet, but I trust that I will when it's time. That shift didn't come from comfort. It came from endurance, from surviving seasons that could have hardened you, but instead deepened you. Notice how your reactions have changed. Things that once provoked you now barely register. Opinions that once shook you now pass through without sticking. You're not numb. You're anchored. You're no longer reacting from wounds, you're responding from wisdom. And wisdom is quiet. Wisdom doesn't announce itself. Wisdom doesn't argue with fools or chase validation. It waits, observes, and moves only when alignment is clear. This lockdown is also teaching you restraint, which is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. Anyone can speak, anyone can act, anyone can react, but it takes authority to hold back, to wait, to choose the right moment instead of the immediate one. You're learning that not every truth needs to be spoken right away. Not every injustice needs your immediate response. Not every opportunity needs to be accepted. Discernment is becoming your default, not excitement. There's a reason you've been feeling a deeper sense of responsibility for your inner world. Your thoughts matter more now. Your intentions matter more now. You're aware that whatever you entertain internally eventually shapes what you experience externally. That awareness didn't come from theory, it came from experience, from seeing how subtle shifts in mindset change the entire trajectory of your days. You're becoming more intentional, more deliberate, more selective. Some days feel emotionally flat, not high, not low, just still. Don't mistake that for emptiness. That's emotional regulation. That's balance. That's the nervous system learning it doesn't have to live in extremes to feel alive. You're not meant to constantly chase highs or brace for lows. You're meant to move from a grounded center. That's where sustainable purpose lives. You may feel less impressed by noise now. Loud confidence doesn't move you. Dramatic promises don't sway you. You're looking for substance, for consistency, for integrity. That shift in values is not accidental. You're being prepared to recognize what is real when it arrives. Because what's real doesn't beg for attention. It commands respect through presence alone. There's also a refining of your voice happening. You're learning when to speak and when silence carries more weight. You're learning that your words land differently now, that they can shape rooms, shift atmospheres, influence decisions. And with that awareness comes restraint. You don't want to speak carelessly anymore. You don't want to waste words on conversations that go nowhere. You're honoring the power of what you carry. You've likely noticed that you're less interested in proving people wrong and more interested in being aligned. Vindication has lost its appeal. Peace has gained value. You're not trying to win arguments. You're trying to live in truth. And truth doesn't need defense. It just needs embodiment. When you live it consist, instantly it speaks louder than explanations ever could. The lockdown has also been protecting you from comparison. If you were fully exposed to everything others were doing right now, it might distract you from your own lane. So your world has narrowed intentionally. Fewer inputs, fewer voices, less external influence. This narrowing is not limitation, it's focus. And focus is what turns potential into impact. You're beginning to sense that your future will require emotional maturity, not just talent, wisdom, not just intelligence, discernment, not just drive. That's why this season feels less glamorous and more grounding. You're being built to handle pressure without losing yourself, success without becoming arrogant, influence without becoming detached from your values. There will be moments when old fears try to resurface, whispering that maybe you're wrong, maybe you missed something, maybe you should go back to what's familiar. When that happens, don't fight the fear aggressively, just observe it. Fear loses power when it's seen clearly. It thrives in confusion, not in awareness. And you are more aware now than you've ever been. You're also learning how to trust yourself again. After seasons of doubt, disappointment, and misalignment, self-trust is being restored slowly, carefully. You're noticing that when you listen to your intuition, things flow better. When you ignore it, resistance appears. That feedback loop is strengthening your confidence, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that doesn't need permission to exist. The lockdown is not about isolation for isolation's sake. It's about integration, bringing together everything you've learned, everything you've endured, everything you've become into a cohesive sense of self. You're not fragmented anymore. You're not living in pieces. You're becoming whole, and wholeness changes how you move through the world. There is a steadiness growing in you that others will feel when they encounter you. They may not know why they feel calm around you or why your presence feels grounding, but it's because you've done the internal work. You've sat with discomfort. You've faced your shadows. You've chosen growth over avoidance. That kind of inner stability can't be faked. As this process continues, you may feel moments of excitement that come out of nowhere, a sudden sense of readiness, a quiet confidence that says, I'm closer than I think. Let those moments encourage you, but don't let them rush you. Excitement is a glimpse, not a command. Stay grounded, stay aligned, trust the pace. You're not waiting for permission anymore. You're waiting for alignment. And alignment feels different. It doesn't come with anxiety. It doesn't come with desperation. It comes with peace. When the next step reveals itself, it won't feel forced. It will feel obvious, like something clicking into place. Until that moment, continue honoring the stillness. Continue protecting your energy. Continue choosing depth over or distraction. This season is not empty. It's full of unseen construction, of internal recalibration, of quiet strengthening. And as you remain attentive, patient, and grounded, the unfolding will continue in layers, each one revealing more clarity, more confidence, more readiness. And you will keep moving forward through this lockdown with an inner certainty that grows day by day, not because everything is visible yet, but because you have learned how to trust what is forming within you as the process carries on without needing a final word or a neat ending, only continued awareness and presence as the next phase prepares itself to emerge. And as it continues to emerge, you'll notice that your relationship with time itself is changing. You're less rushed by it, less intimidated by how quickly days pass, less anxious about milestones you haven't hit yet. You're beginning to understand that timing is not an enemy to outrun, but a partner to respect. What once felt like delay now feels like protection. What once felt like waiting now feels like alignment catching up to intention. You stopped asking when with desperation and started asking, who am I becoming while I wait? That shift alone has altered everything, because the truth is the outcome has never been the issue. The version of you who arrives there has always been the focus. And that version cannot be rushed into existence. It has to be grown, tested, steadied, and trusted. There's a reason you've been more selective with your words lately. You don't speak just to fill space anymore. You don't share everything that crosses your mind. You've learned that some things lose power when spoken too early. Silence has become a strategy, not a defense. And in that silence, your thoughts have gained structure, your emotions have gained clarity, and your intuition has gained authority. You're also noticing that your tolerance for chaos has dropped. Loud environments drain you faster. Drama feels heavier than it used to. You can't pretend anymore that certain situations don't affect you. That's not weakness, that's self-awareness. You're no longer trying to prove resilience by enduring what drains you. You're choosing wisdom by removing yourself from it. The lockdown has heightened your sensitivity, but not in a fragile way, in a refined way. You can sense when something is off before it fully reveals itself. You can feel when a conversation is misaligned before it turns toxic. You can recognize when an opportunity carries hidden cost. This sensitivity is not something to suppress, it's something to steward. It's part of the responsibility that comes with what you're becoming. You've also started to see yourself more clearly, without the harsh inner critic that used to dominate your thoughts. You can acknowledge your growth without dismissing it. You can recognize your progress without minimizing it. That inner dialogue has softened, not because you've lowered your standards, but because I've learned compassion without compromise. There are moments when you realize how far you've come and it catches you off guard. You think about the version of you that would have panicked in situations you now navigate calmly. You remember how reactive you used to be, how unsure, how easily shaken. And you don't feel shame for that version. You feel gratitude. That version survived so this one could exist. This season is also teaching you how to receive, not just give, not just endure, receive rest, receive clarity, receive support when it's offered. You're learning that independence doesn't mean isolation, and strength doesn't mean carrying everything alone. Even in lockdown, provision exists. Guidance exists. Support exists. It just shows up differently than before. You may have noticed that help arrives quietly now, a timely thought, a sudden realization, a conversation that shifts your perspective, a door opening without struggle. These are not coincidences. These are signs that alignment is active even when movement feels minimal. You're not being ignored, you're being guided subtly. The urgency that once drove you has been replaced by intentionality. You don't feel the need to prove momentum. You're comfortable letting things unfold organically. That comfort didn't come from apathy. It came from trust built through experience. You've seen enough to know that forcing outcomes often costs more than it gives. You're also more aware of your limits. And instead of assenting them, you're respecting them. You know when to step back. You know when to pause. You know when rest is necessary, not optional. That self-respect is part of your maturation. Burnout no longer impresses you. Balance does. As the lockdown continues, you may feel waves of introspection that go deeper than before. Questions about meaning, about contribution, about legacy, not in an overwhelming way, but in a grounding way. You're thinking beyond survival now, beyond achievement. You're thinking about impact, about integrity, about alignment between who you are privately and how you show up publicly. You are beginning to sense that your future will require consistency more than intensity, faithfulness more than flair, depth more than display. That realization is reshaping how you prepare. You're less interested in shortcuts, less tempted by appearances, more committed to building something real, even if it takes longer. There will be days when the stillness feels heavy again, when impatience whispers, when doubt tries to question the process. When that happens, remember that discomfort doesn't mean misalignment. Sometimes it means growth is happening beneath the surface. Stay present, stay honest, stay grounded. You're not being hidden to be forgotten, you're being hidden to be refined. There's a difference. One diminishes, the other strengthens. And everything about this season is strengthening you, even when it doesn't feel dramatic. You're also learning discernment around access. Who gets your time? Who gets your energy? Who gets your vulnerability? You're not closing yourself off, you're opening yourself wisely. That discernment will protect you in the next phase, where demands increase and visibility expands. The lockdown is shaping your leadership, even if you don't yet see yourself as a leader. Leadership begins with self-governance, with emotional regulation, with clarity of values, with the ability to stand alone without becoming isolated. You're developing those muscles now. You may notice that your faith in yourself is quieter but stronger. You don't announce your plans anymore. You don't need constant affirmation. You trust your inner compass. That trust has been earned through mistakes, through reflection, through choosing growth again and again. There's a steadiness forming that will carry you through future uncertainty without destabilizing you. You won't need everything to make sense to move forward. You'll know how to take the next step without demanding the full map. That's wisdom. As this phase stretches on, keep honoring what feels true. Keep listening to what resonates deeply rather than what shouts loudly. Keep choosing alignment over urgency. The unfolding is not behind schedule, it's precise. And even now, as days pass quietly and changes happen subtly, you're becoming more grounded, more aware, more prepared than you realize, integrating lessons that will soon reveal their purpose. Standing in a space where patience is no longer passive but powerful, where stillness is no longer empty but charged, where waiting is no longer frustrating but formative, and you continue forward without needing closure, without needing a final signal, simply staying present in the process as it continues to shape you layer by layer, moment by moment, without conclusion, without rush, without retreat, as what is next draws nearer in ways that don't need announcement, only readiness. This is where it all comes together, not with noise, not with spectacle, but with knowing. You didn't endure this season to go back to who you were, and you didn't walk through silence just to return to distraction. Everything you felt, every pause, every delay, every quiet recalibration has been shaping you for a moment where movement will feel natural and obedience will feel effortless. When the lockdown lifts, you won't rush, you won't hesitate, you won't ask for permission because clarity will already be settled inside you. You'll move with calm authority, grounded confidence, and unshakable alignment, understanding that nothing was wasted, nothing was random, and nothing came late. You were protected because you were chosen, refined because you were trusted, and prepared because what's ahead requires someone who can carry it without losing themselves. And as you step forward, you'll realize the waiting didn't weaken you, it anchored you. The silence didn't confuse you, it trained you. And the lockdown didn't stop your life. It quietly positioned you to enter what was always meant for you, fully ready, fully aware, and fully aligned.